He was one of the most feared competitors in the NBA. Raw talent, explosive emotion, and zero hesitation. But in a single moment of uncontrollable rage, everything collapsed. One action, one confrontation, ended a career that once looked destined for greatness. This is the story of how Latrell Sprewell crossed a line there was no coming back from. Welcome to Off-Court Truths, where we expose the moments that change careers forever and uncover the stories the NBA would rather leave unexplained. Latrell Sprewell was never built to be quiet. From the moment he entered the NBA, his game carried an edge that felt dangerous and undeniable. Drafted in 1992, Sprewell quickly became known for his explosive athleticism, relentless defense, and emotional intensity. He wasn't just playing basketball, he was attacking it. On the court, that fire made him special. Off the court, it made him unpredictable. Raised in Milwaukee, Sprewell grew up learning how to survive through toughness. Respect wasn't given, it was taken. That mindset followed him into the league, where he earned a reputation as a fierce competitor who refused to back down from anyone, teammates included. By the mid-1990s, he had become an all-star with the Golden State Warriors, a cornerstone player capable of changing games with his energy alone. But Sprewell's rise came with warning signs. Coaches often struggled to manage his temper. Teammates knew his emotions could swing without warning. Practices were intense. Confrontations were common. The same rage that fueled his fearless drives to the rim also hovered just beneath the surface, waiting for the wrong moment to explode. By 1997, Sprewell stood at a crossroads. He was talented enough to be a franchise star, respected enough to be feared, and volatile enough to be dangerous to himself. Few understood just how close everything was to unraveling, or that one moment of anger would soon define his entire legacy. The breaking point came during a routine practice in December 1997, a moment that would permanently alter Latrell Sprewell's life and legacy. Tensions between Sprewell and Warriors head coach P.J. Carlesimo had been simmering for months. Carlesimo was known for his demanding style, his sharp criticism, and his willingness to challenge players publicly. Sprewell, already carrying the emotional volatility and frustration, felt targeted and disrespected. Practice that day was supposed to be ordinary. Instead, it became explosive. When Carlesimo criticized Sprewell's defensive effort, the exchange escalated quickly. Words turned sharp, emotions flared, and then, in a split second that stunned everyone in the gym, Sprewell lost control. He charged at his coach and placed his hands around Carlesimo's neck, choking him in front of teammates and staff. The practice stopped instantly. Shock replaced noise. No one moved. Although teammates intervened and Sprewell was removed from the court, the damage was already irreversible. Even more alarming, reports later revealed that Sprewell returned later that same day and confronted Carlesimo again, forcing others to step in once more. What began as frustration had crossed into violence. The NBA responded swiftly. Sprewell was suspended for the remainder of the season, and the Warriors voided his contract. Overnight, an all-star became an outcast. The league made its position clear. There were lines that could not be crossed, no matter how talented the player. That single moment of rage didn't just end a season. It shattered trust, destroyed a reputation, and placed Latrell Sprewell on the brink of losing everything he had built. The fallout from Latrell Sprewell's outburst was immediate and unforgiving. Within hours, what had happened inside a closed practice gym became national news. The image was simple and devastating: a player attacking his coach. Context didn't matter. History didn't matter. The NBA had never seen anything like it, and the league reacted with force. Commissioner David Stern suspended Sprewell for the remainder of the 1997-98 season, the longest on-court suspension in NBA history at the time. Golden State voided his contract. Sprewell appealed, arguing provocation and emotional distress, but the damage to his standing was already done. For months, Sprewell existed in basketball exile. Teams quietly debated whether the risk of signing him outweighed the reward. Coaches questioned if they could ever trust him again. Media narratives hardened around a single word: uncontrollable. To many fans, Sprewell became less a player and more a cautionary headline, a symbol of unchecked anger in a league trying to present itself as disciplined and professional. Yet the timeline didn't end with erasure. In 1999, after an arbitrator reduced his suspension and reinstated his contract, Sprewell was traded to the New York Knicks. The move shocked the league. New York wasn't just taking a chance on talent, it was betting on redemption. Inside Madison Square Garden, Sprewell found a strange kind of rebirth. The city's intensity matched his own. The scrutiny was relentless, but so was the opportunity to rewrite his story. On the court, Sprewell delivered. During the 19 playoffs, he played a central role in the Knicks' improbable run to the NBA Finals as an eighth seed. His defense was ferocious, his scoring timely. The same edge that once terrified organizations now fueled belief. Fans who had written him off were forced to reconsider. For a brief stretch, it seemed possible that the moment of rage would become a footnote rather than a defining chapter. But the past never fully loosened its grip. Sprewell's reputation followed him everywhere. Every confrontation, every disagreement, every contract negotiation was filtered through what he had done years earlier. When he later joined the Minnesota Timberwolves, he remained productive, even forming a dangerous trio with Kevin Garnett. Still, trust remained fragile. That fragility finally resurfaced in the final phase of his career. A contract dispute with Minnesota ended his NBA tenure abruptly. Sprewell walked away from the league without a formal retirement, insisting on his value, unwilling to accept what teams were willing to offer. The player who once choked a coach now refused to bend to a league that had never fully forgiven him. The timeline of Latrell Sprewell is not a straight fall or a clean redemption. It is a series of second chances, shadowed by one unforgivable moment. No matter how well he played afterward, that day in 1997 always came first. It framed every discussion. It limited every opportunity. And in the end, it defined how his career would be remembered. To understand Latrell Sprewell's implosion, you have to look beyond the practice floor and into the psychology that shaped him, long before the chokehold. Sprewell played with emotion because emotion was how he survived. From a young age, intensity was his shield. Anger became a form of control in environments where he often felt challenged, disrespected, or overlooked. On the court, that edge translated into fearlessness. Off the court, it narrowed his margin for restraint. Sprewell struggled with authority and structured systems that demanded emotional regulation. Coaches who pushed publicly triggered something deeper than competitive frustration. For him, criticism didn't feel instructional, it felt personal. Over time, repeated confrontations reinforced a belief that respect had to be defended instantly and forcefully. The NBA, however, is built on hierarchy, discipline, and restraint, values fundamentally at odds with Sprewell's emotional operating system. The moment with PJ Carlesimo wasn't spontaneous madness. It was the culmination of unresolved stress, simmering resentment, and an inability to disengage once triggered. When anger crossed from expression into action, Sprewell lost control not just of his emotions, but of his narrative. From that point forward, everything he did was interpreted through the lens of volatility. What makes Sprewell's case tragic is that his rage was never rooted in cruelty. It was rooted in insecurity, pride, and fear of disrespect. But professional sports does not grade intent, only outcome. And in that instant, Sprewell's identity collapsed into a single image he could never fully escape. His story is not about one bad decision. It is about a lifetime of emotion finally overflowing in the worst possible moment. The true climax of Latrell Sprewell's story was not the chokehold itself. It was the moment he realized there was no way back to who he had been. In the days following the incident, the league moved with unprecedented speed and severity. The NBA's message was unmistakable. This was not a lapse in judgment. It was an unforgivable breach. Sprewell watched as his suspension became a symbol, his name reduced to a cautionary headline repeated on every sports network in America. What made this moment devastating was not just the punishment, but the isolation. Teammates distanced themselves. Coaches spoke carefully. Front offices went silent. Sprewell, once a feared competitor, became radioactive. The locker room, his sanctuary, was gone. The court, his release, was taken away. For the first time in his career, anger had not empowered him. It had stripped him of everything. Inside that silence, Sprewell faced the weight of consequence. The league didn't debate his talent. It questioned his presence. The narrative hardened quickly. If he could do this once, could he do it again? That question followed him everywhere, louder than any apology or explanation. In a sport built on trust and hierarchy, fear replaced belief. Even when arbitration reduced his suspension and allowed a return, the damage had already crystallized. The NBA had drawn a line in public, and Sprewell had crossed it in front of the world. The moment became permanent, not because it ended his career immediately, but because it defined the ceiling of his second chances. From that point forward, Latrell Sprewell was no longer chasing greatness. He was chasing survival inside a league that would never forget what it had seen. The consequences of Latrell Sprewell's actions extended far beyond suspension dates and contract disputes. Even after his return to the league, the damage to his reputation proved permanent. Teams no longer evaluated Sprewell solely on production or impact. They evaluated risk. Every confrontation, every emotional reaction, every disagreement was filtered through the memory of what had happened in that Warriors practice gym. Trust, once broken at that level, was never fully restored. Financially, the repercussions were severe. The voided contract cost Sprewell millions, and future negotiations were shaped by caution rather than confidence. Front offices hesitated to invest long-term in a player whose past suggested volatility. When Sprewell later rejected a contract extension in Minnesota, believing he deserved more, the league interpreted it differently. What might have been seen as self-belief in another star was viewed as inflexibility in someone already considered difficult. That decision effectively closed the final door of his NBA career. Emotionally, the toll was quieter but deeper. Sprewell remained defiant publicly, but the absence of the game created a void anger could no longer fill. Basketball had been his outlet, his structure, his identity. Without it, the intensity that once fueled him had nowhere to go. The league moved on, younger stars replaced him, and the moment that ended, everything continued to define how he was remembered. Latrell Sprewell did not fade away because he lacked talent. He faded because one loss of control reshaped how power, trust, and accountability work in professional sports. His legacy became a warning written in permanence. Ability can earn opportunity, but restraint is what allows it to last. Latrell Sprewell's comeback was never a clean redemption arc. It was a return shaped by caution, suspicion, and the understanding that forgiveness in the NBA is conditional. When he resurfaced with the New York Knicks, the opportunity came with invisible restraints. The league allowed him back in, but it never fully welcomed him. Every step forward was monitored. Every outburst feared. Sprewell understood this, even if he never fully accepted it. On the court, he responded the only way he knew how, with intensity. During the Knicks' improbable 1999 playoff run, Sprewell became a central figure, delivering fearless performances under relentless pressure. Madison Square Garden embraced his edge, and for a brief moment, it felt as if the narrative might change. The same fire that once destroyed his career now powered a finals appearance. Redemption seemed possible, not through apology, but through performance. Yet the shadow never lifted. Sprewell's career after New York was productive but unstable. In Minnesota, he remained a high-level contributor, forming a dangerous partnership with Kevin Garnett. Still, his relationship with the league remained transactional rather than trusting. When contract talks broke down and Sprewell refused to accept terms he believed undervalued him, teams saw confirmation of what they already feared: resistance, rigidity, and unresolved conflict with authority. There was no farewell tour, no official retirement. Sprewell's NBA career ended not with a moment, but with silence. He walked away believing he had more to give. The league walked away believing it had already seen enough. This final chapter is not about failure. It is about limits. Sprewell proved that even after the most unforgivable moment, talent can still open doors. But he also proved something harsher, that some actions permanently cap how far redemption can go. His comeback existed, but it lived inside boundaries he could never fully escape. Latrell Sprewell returned to the NBA. He just never escaped the moment that ended everything. Latrell Sprewell's story delivers a hard truth the NBA rarely needs to explain out loud. Talent can earn forgiveness, but violence erases trust. His career shows how thin the line is between intensity and destruction, between passion that fuels greatness and rage that ends everything. Sprewell didn't lose his future because he wasn't good enough. He lost it because in one moment, he broke the fundamental bond that holds professional sports together: control. The lesson isn't that emotion is weakness. It's that emotion without restraint becomes liability. Sprewell reminds us that respect in the NBA is not taken by force. It is preserved through discipline. One instant of losing control outweighed years of effort, achievement, and promise. His story stands as a warning written in permanence. No matter how gifted you are, there are lines the league will never allow you to cross twice. Latrell Sprewell's moment of rage changed everything. Which NBA story should we uncover next on Off Court Truths?